alimentary canal. That means here GIT, gastrointestinal tract, also known as digestive tract. Okay. The digestive tract or gastrointestinal tract develops from the primitive gut that is derived from the dorsal part of the endodermal yolk sac. So how the primitive gut is formed? So already mentioned, it is deriving from the dorsal part of endodermal yolk sac. So before discussing the GIT, that means discussing about the development starting from your mouth to the anal canal, we have to know the foldings of the embryo, which is very important to understand the entire GIT development. Okay. We all know your embryo is in spherical or sphere shape. Okay. First we are looking how seeing how the cranial section will look. So imagine this is a sphere, that is your embryo. Cranial section means we are taking section like this. Okay, and we are viewing it from the anterior aspect. So it looks something like this. This is your amniotic cavity and this is yolk sac. Okay, and here we can see the ectoderm and here we can see the endoderm. Okay, this is the cranial section of your embryo. On the above part we can see amniotic cavity and below we have yolk sac. Also we can see the ectoderm and endoderm. Between the ectoderm and endoderm we have one more important structure, that is intermediate or intra-embryonic mesoderm. Okay. This is your intra-embryonic mesoderm. What is the important structure we see in the intra-embryonic mesoderm? Neural tube and notochord. So this is your neural tube and this is your notochord. Okay. On both the side of your neural tube we have neural crest cells. Okay. On the above part we have amniotic cavity, below we have yolk sac. Also we can see ectoderm and endoderm. Between the ectoderm and endoderm we have important structure, that is intra-embryonic mesoderm. In the intra-embryonic mesoderm region we have two more important structure. One is neural tube and another one is notochord. On either side of the neural tube we have neural crest cells. Okay, and this whole structure is covered by extra-embryonic mesoderm. Okay, and this whole structure is covered by extra-embryonic mesoderm. This is how your embryo or developing embryo look when we see it from the cranial section. Okay. Next we will see how it looks in the sagittal section. Sagittal section means like this. We have a sphere. We have an embryo in sphere shape and we are taking section like this. that is from lengthwise, from one end to another one. Cranial we have taken like this. Okay, so this is your cranial end and this is your caudal end. I can also use the word head and toe. Okay, this is cranial end. This is cranial end. This is caudal end. Cranial end and caudal end. Cranial end I can also call it as head and the caudal end I can also call it as toe. Okay. Exactly like that, here we have amniotic cavity. This is yolk sac. Okay. Here we can see the ectoderm and here we can see the endoderm. Between the ectoderm and endoderm, I have intermediate mesoderm or intra-embryonic mesoderm. Okay, is it clear? Is it clear for everyone? We are seeing the same structure in both the cranial and sagittal. Okay, we have amniotic cavity, sac, and ectoderm, endoderm and intra-embryonic mesoderm. But in your sagittal section, on the cranial and caudal end, we see three important structures. Okay. The very first one is, any idea? Okay. This is cranial end and this is caudal end. Okay. On the cranial end we have three important structures. What are those? Brain. Okay. Any others? Okay. Heart. Other than that? Digestive. Okay, fine. Anything else? Anything else? You guys have textbook, right? No textbook? From which part or structure your diaphragm is developed? Septum, transversus. Okay, this part is septum, transversus. Then we have cardiogenic area. Cardiogenic area. Okay. And the last part, this is buccopharyngeal membrane. Okay, I call it as 1, 2 and 3. So the three important structure that we seen on the cranial end or on the head side is septum, transversus. It helps or it develops your diaphragm, and cardiogenic area where we can see the development of your heart. The last one is buccopharyngeal membrane. It is also known as buccopharyngeal membrane is also known as. Okay, find out what is the other name for buccopharyngeal membrane. The buccopharyngeal membrane is formed in the area where your mesoderm is absent. Okay, here we won't see the presence of mesoderm, so the ectoderm and endoderm will connect with each other. Okay, that portion forms your buccopharyngeal membrane. Okay, on the caudal end or on the toe side, again we have three important structure. Here also there is no presence of mesoderm, so your ectoderm and endoderm are connecting with each other. Okay, this part is called cloacal membrane. Okay, this is called cloacal membrane, and we are seeing the projection that is coming from your yolk sac region. This is called allantois. This is called allantois, and this part is called connecting stalk. Connecting stalk. Is it clear for everyone? We are studying which section? Cranial or sagittal? This is sagittal section. Okay, in the sagittal section, both on the cranial side and on the caudal side, we have three important structure. On the cranial side, we have septum, transversus, which helps in the development of your diaphragm, and followed by cardiogenic area, where we can see the development of heart. Then we have buccopharyngeal membrane. The buccopharyngeal membrane and cloacal membrane are formed in that region where the intermediate mesoderm is absent and the ectoderm and endoderm are connecting with one another. The last important structure is the projection of your yolk sac, that is called allantois, and it is connected by the connecting stalk. Is it clear for everyone? Okay. Next, from this we have to see the rotation of the gut. How the rotation of gut takes place and how many types of rotation we can see during the development. Okay. See the second point. The primitive gut forms during the 4th week of the intrauterine life by the incorporation of a large portion of the yolk sac into the embryonic disc during the craniocaudal and lateral folding of the embryo. So we have two types of foldings. The first one is craniocaudal folding and another one is lateral folding. Craniocaudal folding is nothing but this part. This is the cranial part and this is the caudal part. Both of them are folding in this direction. Okay, that is craniocaudal foldings, which is also known as head and toe foldings. Okay, the another one folding is lateral folding. We are discussing only about the craniocaudal folding in this sessions. Okay, is it clear, this one? Is it clear for everyone? Okay. What is the reason behind the folding of your embryo or the gut part? Amniotic cavity will increase in the size, that causes the folding of your embryo. Okay. This is your amniotic cavity. Okay, this is your amniotic cavity. Now the yolk sac is emerging into this portion. Okay, this is yolk sac. Before we have seen the structures like this. Now this amniotic cavity is getting increased in the size so that your yolk sac is getting incorporated into your amniotic cavity region. This causes the folding of the embryo. Okay. Now I can call this as a first second and third. Okay, same here also. First, second and third part. Now your buccopharyngeal membrane is in first position, followed by pericardial or cardiogenic area, and here okay. First we have buccopharyngeal membrane, next we have cardiogenic area, followed by what transverse? Septum transversus. So now you can see the order. From this your mouth and pharynx region is developing, then we have heart, then we have diaphragm. Okay, now it is in order. You have to imagine the embryo, okay. So in the embryo, first the mouth and pharynx part is coming, then the heart, then followed by the diaphragm. Is it clear for everyone? Any doubts in this? Any doubts? Sure? Amniotic cavity is getting increased in the side, so the folding of embryo is taking place. This one is particularly the caudal foldings. Okay. Now the buccopharyngeal membrane is at the first place, then followed by cardiogenic area, then followed by your septum transversus. Okay. Next we have yolk sac. In the yolk sac we have seen the three important structure, that is cloacal membrane, followed by allantois and the connecting stalk, right? This is your allantois. Okay. Along with the allantois we have one more important structure in the yolk sac now, that is called intestinal duct. Okay. Before we have seen only one projection from your yolk sac, that is allantois, but in this section we are seeing two projection from the yolk sac. One is allantois and the another one is intestinal duct, or you can also call it as intestinal duct. Okay, is it clear for everyone until here? So around this two structure, which structure will form? Not spinal cord. Very good. This is umbilical cord. Okay. It is developing around your yolk sac. So what are the contents of umbilical cord now? Allantois, intestinal duct, and two umbilical artery and one umbilical vein. Remember this, two umbilical artery and one umbilical vein. Remember morning when we are discussing about the fetal circulation, I said from the left umbilical vein through the placenta, the purification of blood is taking place and it is entering into your heart. See, there is only one umbilical vein, that is left umbilical vein. Okay, is it clear for everyone? Any doubts in this? No? Sure? Okay. Now this area of the yolk sac is called as primitive gut. This is how the formation of your primitive gut takes place. See there. The digestive tract develops from the primitive gut that is derived from the dorsal part of the endodermal yolk sac. Okay. This part of the yolk sac, now we call it as primitive gut. Is it clear until here? Any doubts? No doubts? So how many types of foldings are there? 2 types. What are those? Craniocaudal and lateral one. We are discussing only about the craniocaudal in this session. So what happens in the craniocaudal foldings? Okay. What are the structures we see at the cranial end or at the head part? Okay. Cardiogenic area, and how the buccopharyngeal membrane is formed? Or in which area the buccopharyngeal membrane will appear? Where the intermediate mesoderm is absent and the ectoderm and endoderm connects with each other. On the caudal side, we have a similar structure to buccopharyngeal membrane, that is called cloacal membrane. Along with the cloacal membrane, we have 2 more important structures. What are those? Allantois. Allantois is the elongation of from your yolk sac only. Okay. Then we have connecting stalk. Okay. What is going to happen for your yolk sac after the bending or folding takes place? It forms? It doesn't form umbilical cord. Your umbilical cord will appear around your yolk sac elevations or structures. Okay? Yeah, your yolk sac will now call it as primitive gut. What are the contents of umbilical cord then? Okay. And one? Okay. We have one umbilical vein, that is the left side of the umbilical vein. Is it clear until here? Any doubts? Any doubts, class? No doubt? Sure? Okay. From the primitive gut, we have again 3 parts. What are those? Foregut, midgut and hindgut. Heard of it, right? So how we divide the foregut, midgut and hindgut? Proximal, distal. Okay. The part which is closer to the head region, this is called foregut. Okay. The part which is closer to the toe region, that is called hindgut. The area or the gut that is present between your foregut and hindgut is called midgut. Is it clear? Once the formation of primitive gut takes place, we divide it into 3 parts. The part which is closer to your head region, that is called foregut. The part which is closer to your toe region, that is called hindgut. Between the foregut and hindgut, we have a midgut. Is it clear for everyone? Any doubts? No? Extends in the medial plane from the buccopharyngeal membrane at its cranial end to cloacal membrane at its caudal end. Okay? It's freely communicate with the remaining yolk sac by the structure called vitalo-intestinal duct. The part of gut cranial to this communication is called foregut, and the part caudal to this communication is called hindgut. The part intervening between the foregut and hindgut is called midgut. The cranial end of the foregut is separated from the stomodium by buccopharyngeal membrane, while caudal end of hindgut is separated from the proctodium by cloacal membrane. At a later stage of development, the buccopharyngeal and cloacal membranes will disappear and the foregut and hindgut are in communication with the stomodium and proctodium respectively. Thus, the gut communicates with the exterior. Okay, this is the section of your developing embryo. This is the yolk sac. We have a umbilical opening. This is the amniotic cavity. Here we have a primitive gut. Once the primitive gut is formed, we divide it into three parts: foregut, midgut and hindgut. Okay. Next we have vitalo-intestinal duct, that is the remaining of your yolk sac. On the other end we have allantois. Okay. We have one more important structure, that is procodium and stomodium. Just remember the names right now. Okay. The communication between foregut and midgut is called anterior intestinal portal, that is this part. This is the communicating point between your foregut and midgut. This is called anterior intestinal portal, and later in the adult this will form the second part of the duodenum. So your anterior intestinal portal will give us second part of the duodenum in the adult. Okay. The communication between the midgut and the hindgut is called posterior intestinal portal. Later in adults it forms the left 1/3 of your transverse colon. Okay. Remember, the communication between your foregut and midgut is called anterior intestinal portal. In adult it forms or it develops into second part of the duodenum. The communication between the midgut and hindgut is called posterior intestinal portal. In adults it is going to form the junction of right 2/3 with the left 1/3 of the transverse colon. Remember these points. Okay. Next we'll see the derivative of the midgut, foregut and hindgut. So this is our foregut and this is midgut and this is hindgut. Okay. Whatever the folding structure was there, no, that I have written as a straight structures. Okay. This is the anterior side and this is the posterior side. On the posterior side we have one important structure, that is dorsal aorta. Okay. Okay. We have foregut, midgut and hindgut. This is the anterior side and this is the posterior side. On the posterior side we have dorsal aorta. Okay. Now each important branch from this supplies to your gut. Any idea which arteries will supply? Your foregut is supplied by celiac trunk. It is supplied by celiac trunk. What about the midgut? Superior mesenteric artery, and the hindgut is supplied by inferior mesenteric artery. Is it clear for everyone? On the posterior side we have dorsal aorta. Branches from the dorsal aorta will supply to your gut region. Foregut is supplied by celiac trunk, midgut is supplied by superior mesenteric artery and hindgut is supplied by inferior mesenteric artery. If you remember the folding structure, this is the primitive gut part. Right? On outer region we have amniotic cavity, right? And this primitive gut is divided into three parts: foregut, midgut, hindgut. So your dorsal aorta is present here like this. Okay, this is the celiac trunk, this is the superior mesenteric artery and this is the inferior mesenteric artery. In the folding embryo, the structures will look like this. This is the straight structure of the same one. Is it clear? Any doubts in this? No doubts? Sure. This is about the blood supply to your gut region. What are the derivatives of the foregut? Derivative of the foregut. Pharynx, okay. Proximal part of esophagus, okay. Midgut, stomach, okay. Liver, okay. Intestine. What about the hindgut? Is it clear for everyone? Any doubts in this? Derivative of the three ducts. Here you can see this is your dorsal aorta. From the dorsal aorta, celiac trunk is supplying to your foregut, and midgut is supplied by superior mesenteric artery, and the hindgut is supplied by inferior mesenteric artery. Okay. These are the derivatives of your guts. Floor of the mouth, tongue, pharynx, derivatives of pharyngeal pouches, thyroid, esophagus, respiratory system, stomach, and also the proximal, that is upper half of the duodenum, is derived from the foregut, whereas the liver, pancreas, biliary system, and lower half of the duodenum, jejunum, ileum, cecum, appendix, ascending colon, and 2/3 of the transverse colon is derived from the midgut. And the derivatives of hindgut are left 1/3 of the transverse colon, descending colon, sigmoid colon, rectum, and upper part of the anal canal. You have to remember each and every structure that is deriving from your gut part. Okay? Okay. From where we have started? From the development of GIT, which takes place from the primitive gut. How the formation of primitive gut takes place? How the formation of primitive gut takes place? From the yolk sac. What is the process? To know how the development of primitive gut takes place, we should be aware of foldings of the embryo. There are two types of foldings. What are those? Craniocaudal and lateral foldings. Okay. What happens in craniocaudal folding? What are the important structures we see in the sagittal and coronal sections? Okay, first start with amniotic cavity, yolk sac, ectoderm, endoderm, and mesoderm. Okay, once the folding start taking place, we'll see other three important structure on the cranial end and caudal end. In the cranial end, we have cardiogenic area, buccopharyngeal membrane. Your septum transversus helps in the development of diaphragm, and cardiogenic area we can see the development of heart, followed by buccopharyngeal membrane. And the caudal end, what are the three structures? Allantois, cloacal membrane, and the connecting stalk. Okay, your allantois is the elongation from the yolk sac, and cloacal membrane and buccopharyngeal membrane is formed at which region? Where the mesoderm is absent and the ectoderm and endoderm is connecting with each other. Okay, what happens next? Amniotic cavity will increase in the size, that forms the folding. Your yolk sac will turn into primitive gut with two important elongation. One is allantois and the another one is vitalo-intestinal duct. Okay, then the primitive gut is divided into how many parts? 3 parts. What are those? Foregut, midgut, and hindgut. On what basis we divide those guts? cranial end, caudal end, and intermediate region. Okay. Next, your foregut is supplied by celiac trunk, midgut supplied by, and the hindgut is supplied by inferior mesenteric artery. So I hope it's clear for everyone, and these are the derivatives of your foregut, midgut and hindgut. Okay. In the next class we'll discuss from the lateral foldings, then we'll start with the development of your mouth region. Okay. Is it clear? Any doubts? Others? Fine. Thank you.